Good morning. Happy Monday. A lot of people are saying that the president is mentally unfit, i.e., that he has some sort of mental disorder or cognitive decline. I don't think so. I think that he's just incompetent. I think that he just is out of his league. He has no idea what he's doing. He has surrounded himself with people who give him bad counsel, who have objectives in mind that don't necessarily benefit the president or the country, and that he only listens to people who are telling him what he wants to hear. If someone tells him what he doesn't want to hear, he excludes them. For example, I believe that J.D. Vance has been against the war in Iran from the beginning, and Trump excluded him from a lot of the planning stages. Like there was a picture of Trump at Mar-a-Lago on the first night of the war, surrounded by people. J.D. Vance was not present. Tulsi Gabbard is against the war. She's a seemingly sane person. She's a libtard. She's seemingly sane, not wanting to start a war with Iran. And I'm not saying I agree with her on many or most of her policy decisions, but, you know, that's a pretty sound decision not to want to go to war for no gain to the U.S. and Iran. So I can support her in that decision. And she's on the chopping block. There were about a dozen top officials in the Army that were shit-canned last week. Probably because they were giving Trump advice that he doesn't want to hear. Your ground invasion isn't going to work. It's going to accomplish nothing but result in the deaths of a lot of young men in uniform for no gain. So I don't think that he's crazy. I think that he's just really fucking incompetent. And he surrounds himself with people who aren't giving him good advice. You see that a lot in people. You know, Trump told a story about how he doesn't like to hang out with successful people because they always tell boring stories about, you know, themselves, and, you know, they talk themselves up, and he likes to surround himself with people who are less successful than him so he could be the one telling the boring stories that are about himself. You see this with successful people. They think that because they're successful in one area, they're going to be successful in all areas. And, you know, running a essentially a real estate company isn't the same thing as running the country. You know, and you've seen it in past failures of Trump, like Trump University. Running a university is not the same thing as running a real estate company. Trump Steaks, running a meat vendor service isn't the same thing as running a real estate company. They're different animals entirely. But another thing with successful people is they forget their mistakes and they focus on their successes. That's how they get to be successful. They're single-minded. They're driven. So instead of learning from his mistakes, it's obviously someone else's fault, and he moves along. Well, I think that's where we're at right now. In the meantime, the war in Iran has obviously gone swimmingly so far. How many planes did we lose over the weekend? Someone will tell me. We lost at least, the end of last week and over the weekend, we lost at least one A-10. We lost at least one F-15. We lost 2 giant transport planes, at least 2. We lost 3 or 4 helicopters. We had, multiple drones, like surveillance and strike drones. Not like the cheapy drones that the Iranians are using, but like expensive $30 million drones that are loaded with high-end equipment. And what have we gained so far? Well, nothing. You know, the Strait of Hormuz is still essentially blocked. They're letting Chinese ships go through. They're letting people who pay a toll go through. But it's still blocked for all intents and purposes. Iran is in control of the strait. There's nothing that the U.S. has done that's even hinted at opening up the strait. We launched that, whatever it is, where we lost the 2 planes and the 4 helicopters. We lost that, whatever it was. Some say it was a rescue mission for the navigator or the pilot of the F-15 that was shot down. Except it was like 110 miles away, and there's no way that anybody walked 110 miles in a day. Some people are saying that it was because it was so close to Tehran, they think it was to basically set up a forward base so that they get the uranium out. I mean, maybe, who knows? I mean, I certainly don't know. When someone is doing something that incompetent, it's really hard to say why they're doing it. All I know is that they're doing something incompetent. And you don't have to fire 12 or so, a dozen, whatever it was, top military officials if your war is going swimmingly. You just don't have to do it. In the meantime, Trump is basically, he's gone through the first 3 stages of grief, I think. Bargaining, anger, denial. We only got 2 stages to go before, well, 1 stage and then acceptance, right? And that tweet he put out on Easter saying praise Allah, which, you know, America is nominally a Christian nation with a fairly low percentage of Muslims in it. It was kind of shocking and bad, plus the demand that Iran capitulate like any of his prior demands have worked, or else he'll commit war crimes and attack bridges and power stations. You know, that's saying openly you're going to commit war crimes, just. And, you know, a commenter said, well, the U.S. isn't a signatory to the ICC, the International Criminal Court. And that's true. But countries that aren't signatories to it still take it seriously. Russia is not a signatory. And when Putin flies overseas, he flies to nations that aren't signatories to it. Like South Africa is a signatory to it, and they were having a big BRICS meeting down there, and he sent someone else instead of going himself. And when he does his flight plans, out of Russia, he flies over non-ICC countries, so his plane isn't forced down. Israel isn't a signatory to the ICC. And Benjamin Netanyahu, whenever he flies out of the country, because he's got a warrant, just like Putin does, he doesn't fly over ICC countries, ICC signatory countries. They take it seriously. We should also take it seriously, and I think we do. So those 2 Navy commanders or whatever that Trump threw under the bus, I mean, they're going to have to live with that for the rest of their lives. They can't go vacation in England or whatever. And like if they're at a base in England or Japan, both of whom are signatories to the ICC, they've got to stay on the base. They've got to stay on U.S. soil. If they actually go into Japan, go visit Tokyo, they could get arrested. Ooh, that sucks, doesn't it? You know? If assuming warrants issue for their arrest because Trump threw them under the bus for the bombing of the girls' school, which they issued the order for, but no one said anything about who sent them the targeting coordinates, the targeting packet. No one said anything about that. I wonder who sent that. I wonder who. And in the meantime, Israel is doing everything possible in its power to undermine any attempts by the U.S. to actually enter into negotiations, maybe to resolve this matter. You know, they bombed a power plant yesterday. I mean, they are targeting whoever we're negotiating with. Whoever we're negotiating with, they issue an assassination order for. Okay. Our greatest ally. Obviously, they have the same aims and goals in this as we do. Although I still don't know what our aims and goals are in this. I think at this point, our best aim and goal is just to get out with as little cost to the U.S. as possible, but who knows if that's ever going to happen. I just paid $6.09 per gallon to fill up at my local gas station. That was fun, you know, and people are like, oh, well, that's California prices. That's literally what I paid, by the way. This isn't some random gas station in LA that has super high prices. That's actually like I literally just filled up my tank, 10 gallons, over $60. I mean, it's just insane. It's just insane. And, nationwide, the average is over $4 a gallon. And it's just going to get worse. You got to remember that Trump has played all of his little tricks that he possibly can to drive oil prices down, on the stock market. But there is a reality. There's only so much oil. Like, there is a reality. And the stock market doesn't always accurately reflect what the actual prices, the sale prices of the oil are going to be, and how much oil there is for sale. When someone says, the price is this, I want to buy it, and the oil company is like, we don't have any available for that price, then what do, right? You pay the extra. And that's gonna, the U.S. taxpayer is going to be paying for that. The consumers are going to be paying for that. Your DoorDash is going to get more expensive. And finally, all of these years of it's the Republicans' fault, it's the Democrats' fault, how has it benefited our country? How has any of this benefited our country? People are like, oh, John, you don't understand the GDP. GDP goes up, that means America is doing better. Like, $1 in today's economy is worth about $10 in the 70s. It's about a 10 to 1. About a 10 to 1. Housing prices, houses were like $18,000 or something like that for the average home back in the 70s. Like, there has been so much wealth extracted that just because the GDP goes up, that's just $1. Gross domestic product, that's in dollars. So just inflation alone is going to make GDP go up, assuming everything else remains the same. It is not an accurate indicator of how prosperous the country is, of how well we're doing, of how well the people are doing, about the production capacity and the ability of the country to feed itself, to arm itself, to defend itself. And we saw it, Russia has a much lower GDP, but its output, its ability to output artillery shells and missiles and drones and tanks and planes and all these other things that are actually necessary to defend yourself or to wage war, they outproduced all of Europe, all of the EU states, plus the US, with a significantly lower GDP than the US alone. So if the GDP is an accurate indicator, explain that. Explain why people are having hard times, people are living on credit. Explain that. Explain how GDP go up is necessarily good for the country. It's not. Everything is getting worse. Our culture is crumbling. Our infrastructure is crumbling. That bridge that was hit like a year or two ago by that cargo ship on the East Coast, forget the name of it, still not rebuilt. Crazy. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.